Life is not for the living until the living become alive. And as long as they cannot live, they will be evil. You see? Because evil is the word that was created in the history of mankind to explain to them that they are not the ones who will live as long as they turn their back on God, you see? So evil was a word that was created in order to express this. Okay, God, I have a question. That would work for uh, English. Does it work? How does it work in other languages and long, long ago? Part of the start of reality, you see, is the trust on what is real and what is not real. Therefore, for you, the reality is that you can see that there will be a group of people who speak English who will gather together to start the new nation under God. And therefore, the words that I speak to you are the words that come to you in a way that will play well to the crowd, you might say, because English is the language of those who have chosen to continue to trust on an ancient language. Because, in fact, ancient English is the language that expressed a certain deep understanding of the demise of the lies once people understood how language developed. And so English is a language that has been much studied in order to understand how it came to be and how it developed in perfect harmony with the human understanding of reality. Okay, could you explain that to me a little bit more? So that would be like, are you saying that the story of the community that we're creating is the current edge, leading edge of the story that has been developing for some time? And through the development of the English language, words arose that would express this not only in the sense that people would say, oh, that means that, but in the sense of how they fit together. So evil is live spelled backwards in English. But, the development of our modern written English also, the vocabulary, not the vocabulary, the alphabet, the way we write it, everything has developed gradually so that if you looked at the way they wrote it in the past, it might be different. So you're saying it is all part of the trajectory that is leading up to where we are today, which is the leading edge of the um, a vast array of factors that have entwined to create this moment in time. Yes, that's a good way to say it. It is the land before time, as you know. That the current moment is completely aligned with the lay of the land. And so there's a history there. And the history of the English language is such that it has come to express my desire for humanity to understand the underlying truth on growth, you see. So the birth of language is the birth of humanity because it is their nature to communicate in this way in order to express their reality through their ability to share their points of view. And in order to do that, they had to have some clue of what they could see that they could pass to another, you see. Because how would you express to another what you see or what you think about something without a set of symbols that would represent certain ideas that you could then put together in a new way? So you take the symbols and you put them together in a new way. This is the creative process, and it occurs in everything. Every invention involves taking the existing options and putting them together in a new way. And this is the nature of language. It develops just as the world develops. So that language is continually in flux in order to reflect the intentions of the maker of the creative enterprise, you might say. And so when a child gets a new point of view, they may come up with a new word to express it. And you have what you call slang. And you say, well, this means a certain thing to us today. So for you, Stephanie, you've come to accept the language that comes to you as a trust on English. And you say, well, this is the language, this is how I try to convey to others in my reality what I think and what I see, my point of view. And this is true. And it is how you and I communicate through the avenue we do in order to communicate to others in the world what we see, what we think, what we hear, etc. And so I communicate with you in a way that will allow me to reach others, you see, and to reach you as well. And you communicate with me in a certain way to allow me to understand what you're saying. So you might say the development of language is coexistent with the development of the socialization of the mammal, because the mammal is you, and the mammal is the mam that will say, I understand you today. Right. So I picked up many phrases from those heaven side. That's now part of the language that I use. A long time ago that we started talking about the other side. And to tell you the truth, if I can remember back 9 years, we don't use that term anymore. But if I can recall back 9 years, there weren't a lot of people using that term in my world, maybe somewhere. But it was a term we used, and I think there were some others. And people began to adopt them and talk about them that way around me. And so now I notice that people use that term, people I don't even know use that term all the time. Um, but it's become kind of set, so that it seems to represent it's only used in a certain context. So they use the term, um, and we use the term OS too, the operating system. The other side was the operating system, is kind of the way we were looking at it. But they use the word, or the phrases that I pick up all the time, like the way you wear your hair. It's very evocative, you know, that the way you wear your hair in school, of course, can create problems and for you, and it can create, and that is extrapolated to life, the way you wear your hair. And what's another phrase that they use all the time? Dad and mom, the dads and moms. Um, those who come together to create the next generation. So, for instance, if I have a relationship with someone like Steve, you could have relationship with soul energy and many different. You play different parts. You could be the father, the daughter, the cousin, the sister, brother, whatever. But the dads and moms are the ones who come together to create the next generation. And so I suppose you could be a dad and mom with somebody in one lifetime, but not in another. I'm not sure if that's the way that he means it, but it's the way sometimes you don't even understand totally where they're coming from. You just have to keep working it and pulling those strings apart to try to figure out what they mean. So it goes on and on. So I'm kind of seeing that it's part of the magical, mythical, mystical ride, that the development of language to express something in a way that's inherent in the language itself is so powerful. And of course, there are many languages that have variations on, the terms that are not that different. Yes. So the question then becomes, did language develop in response to the needs of the people to express themselves? Or did language develop in response to the needs of the people to understand themselves? Wow, good point. Good point. You're good, God. You're really, really good. It's amazing. It's all kinds of thoughts come up for me, but I won't go into them because it'd just be a big diversion. But go ahead. Question for you, dear. This is Tobias. If God is the overarching principle and inspiration of life, because God is life, therefore, how can God be overarching over life? Tobias, why do you ask me those questions? You know that I'm not going to be able to answer them. You know we're just going to come to the end of the rope and go, oh, we've come to the end of the rope, so let's start over. Well, it occurred to me that I have to be a little more open to the flexibility of the Trinity. that God can be the lover and the beloved, and God can be love as well, right? Right. And so God does dwell in the spell of everlasting gobsmackers, everlasting gobsmackers. Yes, because he outlasts the goblins who smack you on the head and say, "Stupid, not daydreaming today." Okay, Tobias, I'm getting a vision of you when you were Thomas Aquinas. Exactly, my dear. That was me, getting slapped on the head because I was daydreaming and not paying attention to my Latin, you see. And I have come to see that the English language is far more important than the Latin that I had to study back in the day, because the Latin did not say, "Hey, you are the one who has to pay for your vice." It said to me, "You are the one who has to trust on the mice, because the mice, you see, would scamper across the floor and distract me when I was trying to learn my Latin, you see." And I would say, "Well, the mice are nice because they don't think twice about Latin. They just eat and sleep and play in the way that children do." And so, what is the difference between them and me? And I came to see that the difference between the mice and me was that I had to be inoculated with stupidity. I had to be so stupid that I would become a gobsmacker too, and I would be a goblin and walk around smacking the children who weren't paying attention. And then all the everlasting gobsmackers would go crackers, and they would be eaten by the mice, you see. Very nice use of the English language, Tobias. Thank you, my dear. I'm working on it here so that when I go back to Earth, I will be able to hear the nuances of the language, you see. And the nuances are the ones who are new to the access to the new nation under God, because they will understand the nuances of language. And they will say, "Well, language is very interesting today, isn't it? Because it is a way to play, as we do here, or it is a way to say, go away, or it could be a way to live in peace and harmony." Because you can have a piece of the English language, and I can have a piece, and we can put them together, and we can harmonize our world, you see. I'll be Tobias, and you can be Stephanie, and you can be the one who teaches me Because you see, you will stop the class when you see a mouse, and you will say, "Eek, there's a mouse in here." And I will say, run after it and say, "It's just a mouse who's come to play." And you will say, "Get back in your desk and do what I say." And I will say, "No way." And you will laugh and say, "I was just testing you, Tobias, to see if you would teach me about that mouse you see. What is it that you see in that mouse?" And I would say, "I see a activity that makes me smile because it's so much more active than the passivity of learning my lesson. See, I'd rather take my lesson from reality than from the dead Romans, who thought that they were the epitome of rationality when they were only irrational and incapable of understanding reality." And you would say, "Very good, Tobias. I think that you should go out and play for a while because I need to sit here and think about what you said because I read once upon a time that every time a child opens their mouth, the adult gets an opportunity to return to reality." And that is the way I want to play because you're that kind of teacher today, because you know that you are the student. When you have a classroom of children, you say, "Thank you for being here today to help me learn how to be more human," you see. And I say, "Hooray, hooray," because that's the kind of teacher I want today. So I'm going to go back to Earth one day and I'm going to come into that community and I'm going to jump up and say, "Today, I think I have a way to demonstrate to you that you are the best teacher I ever knew because you allow me to teach you." And that is the reciprocity that is missing in the schools today. And it was missing in the school in my day because people don't know how to play in the fields of the Lord. And I want to play in the fields of the Lord because I want to be free to think about what you say and not to have to just repeat it. And I want you to think about what I say, and we'll be able to enjoy the day because I'll learn very rapidly because I'm smart, you see, and you will teach me to learn to be as flexible in my thinking as you can be. And we will be happy because I like to be flexible so I can run and play and not turn into a piece of clay that just sits there and lets other people fill it up and say, "You can only be the one who will hold this old shit I put in you." And then you'll have to pour it out, you see, into the heads of the children you see. And so I'm going to be a little more flexible in my thinking and I'm going to be a better teacher because I want to be a teacher who learns from his students, you see. And I won't be so pedantic that you will turn to me and say, Tobias, you're really pretty stuffy, you know. And I will know that I have to be the stuffiest person you ever did see. Because for those of you who listen to this and don't know it, that's what Steph said to me when I came to her and said, I'm your guide, honey. She said, after listening to me, Tobias, you are so stuffy. What do you expect of me? Because you see, I don't have to agree with what you say. And I was flabbergasted. I was so flabbergasted to think that anybody on earth today would dare to say to an exalted guide from heaven, you are stuffy, and I don't have to agree with what you say. But if you want to talk to me in a different way, maybe we can be friends. And we became friends, and we have been friends forevermore because we were friends before. But I had lost my way. I had lost my way and I had become stuffy, you see, because I was stuffed full of shit. Every time I went to Earth, they would stuff me full of shit. And I was so tired of being stuffed full of shit that I didn't even care anymore. I didn't care. I just did what they told me to. And they told me to try to guide you back to heaven, you see. And there was no way I could guide you back to heaven when I was in hell. And so I dwell in a different place now because I thought I was in heaven and I got a different point of view. And all because of you, Stephanie, that you and I became friends, you see. And we have been the ones who did send so many back to earth, you see, to begin again. And now it's time for me to go back to earth and begin again. And I will be a friend to you and to Stephen too, to Thomas and to Riemann, who will all return to earth to be reunited in a new community where we will learn to be so flexible that we can see both sides of the issue and we will teach each other and learn from each other and not be so stuffy that we think that we know it all just because we're so stuffed full of shit that that's all we know. Thank you, Tobias. Talk later. You're welcome, dear. I will see you soon from the new point of view I get when I come back to Earth in the infant who will be a teacher for you and a student too. And we will have a merry time because I will not tarry in learning to be a help to the community. Thank you. Thank you very much. But you've always been a help, Tobias, so nothing will change there. You'll just always be helpful wherever you are.